So the cliche is everything that you feel ain't always real. Last week, we told you about 5 relationship myths that may be causing you some damage in your relationships and in your marriages. We got 5 more that we're going to go through this week. So if you want to learn about some behaviors that may feel all right, but aren't really real, stay tuned. We will be right back.
What's up, Safehouse?
Safehouse is in the house.
We back.
Another episode for you.
Yeah.
I
wish I had a hat today.
You want a hat?
Playing the ponytail type of thing. You know, my hair's not done, so I wish I had a hat or something. But I don't even look good in hats either. So
okay.
It's whatever. What's up, Safehouse?
I could get you a hat if you want a hat.
I know. I'm okay.
All right.
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I can do a trick and you get a hat. That didn't come out right.
That lets you know how we already getting started today.
that did not come out
we
right.
We already getting started today.
We already on one. We are already on
oh
one.
Boy.
Oh boy.
Put your seatbelt on.
Yeah, strap in, y'all.
Right.
Oh boy.
Welcome back, Safehouse.
Welcome back. First, just want to say thank you for all the reach outs. And many of you gave us commentary about my wife's response on the last video.
We're not doing that this week. Don't be trying to throw me a curveball. Okay, I'm not even for it today.
We are still married. We still love each other.
Yes, we do.
Despite the shocked look that she gave last week when I asked that question.
Exactly.
But it's all good. It's all good. And, it was just a good conversation about what may be a myth. I know there are a lot of these things that when we first got married, there are a lot of these myths that I actually believed because I didn't know any better, right? It's kind of like whatever you hear from your friends, from your family, what you learned from your parents, what you saw on TV kind of becomes your baseline for what you expect relationships to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So.
Today, huh?
Today.
You want to start out spicy? You want to start out slow?
You can control the pace, right?
Here we go.
Since I shocked you last week, you can control the pace.
Well, let's start out with this one. I think this one can be kind of tricky. Okay. So this could be spicy or maybe not. Okay. So when you're in a relationship with somebody, do you think that you should share everything with them?
Do you think that you should share everything?
Do you think that there should be secrets? Is there a difference between me not telling you something versus me just having boundaries and privacy? What does that look like?
Yeah, this is just my humble opinion, right? There's secrecy and then there's private matters, right? Mm-hmm. Which I know some people are like, well, what does that mean?
Right.
Why is anything private? It's like we're supposed to be one, right?
And there shouldn't be any secrets between us.
Right. Well, yeah, and so what's the purpose, right? Once again, I'm not trying to rationalize deception because we often sort of associate privacy with some level of deception. We automatically jump to a place that you're keeping it private because you're trying to deceive me or you have something to hide, which is kind of a negative perception on these things, right? Yeah. So let's take it out of just the marriage context, the relationship context. If you're an attorney, right, and you're working on a case, just because I'm married to somebody, am I now allowed to go home and discuss the facts of those cases with my spouse?
Right.
Well, it's like, well, no. Well, those things are private matters between you and your client, right? The same thing. If you work at a bank, should you come home and disclose the people that came into the bank and how much money they have? Those are private matters, right? And they're not done with the idea of deception. They're done with the idea that you have an obligation professionally to keep those things private between you and who you're responsible to.
Right.
Right.
Well, let's just keep it a little bit more simpler.
Okay.
So there could just be, I think what happens too is when people feel like they don't want to share information, then you automatically think I have to be hiding something.
Yeah.
That if I don't want to let you know. So we were kind of having that conversation today with our daughter, and and we were talking about passwords. And so she's like, I'm never giving anybody the password to my phone. And I don't think there's anything like crazy like in her phone. But once again, when I asked her why, she said, it's my phone.
Yeah.
And so I think too, sometimes when we're in relationships, you know, in order to, you know, kind of maintain some kind of autonomy, you know, we're still like, okay, this is mine.
Right.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know, having what's mine.
There's a healthy autonomy,
Yeah.
and then there's an unhealthy autonomy, right? So once again, if you come from a mindset, and if you come from an untrusting mindset, a fixed mindset, then you automatically think any sort of autonomy, any sort of a privacy, anything, and even you have to evaluate, have I been hurt in the past? And therefore I've developed mistrust, right?
Okay.
So if you take those three things out, autonomy isn't necessarily bad, but there is sometimes this sort of privacy, autonomy, or whatever, or secrecy that someone wants to maintain that's not healthy. So say, for instance, we are in a married relationship, and
we are married.
Yeah, we are, right. So we're married. So
You're saying that like we're not.
Right. Well, here we go. It's about to happen. It's about to happen. It's about to happen again, y'all. Brace yourselves. So we're married, but I say to you, babe, you know what? I've had 8 close female friends that I've dialogued with every week for the past 30 years, but I've not told you about them. How would you react to that?
What? I mean,
uh-oh. See, we did it again. Uh-oh.
I'm like, what? I mean, I don't even know how to answer that question. I'm just like, yeah, that's a whole secret, man. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. But there's no.
Why would you come clean with that today?
Yeah, because that's mine. They're my friends. It's my private friends, and there's nothing sexual. There's nothing attract or whatever. It's just different friend circles, right?
Right. I don't even know how to adequately answer that question, because once again, you always go to the extreme. Yeah. And so I do think it's okay to have some things that are yours. But I also think that it's okay to say, too, that when you're married, to say, hey, let's talk about the friends that that we've had, or whatever. And so once again, if you feel like you don't want to share with me that you've got 8 friends that you talk to and that I don't know about, that's a whole problem, sir.
Okay. You can bring your voice down. I don't have any friends. I don't have any friends that I've been keeping secret. Your voice done got high. I don't have any friends.
I told you this one was going to get weird. I knew it. I was like,
well, is that really extreme? Because I think we know people that have had that sort of habit, right? And once again, that's the point I'm trying to make. There is sort of a healthy privacy, and then there's an unhealthy privacy, right? Because that's a deceptive privacy.
Right. I was going to say that's a deceptive privacy.
That's deceptive, right? Because if we're friends, we can all be friends.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Right. And, so, but there are situations, so once again, every time I play golf, do I share what score I shot, or my practice methods, or, every time, I do one of my recreational activities, do I go into detail about everything that I did? No. If you asked me about it, I told you, right? But those are my activities, right?
And you're still not going to give me like a play-by-play,
right?
Like strictly detailed, anything like that. So that's why I'm saying that. That's why I'm thinking that that's a myth, because there's never going to be an opportunity where you get to share everything. Yeah. Because you're not going to remember to share everything.
It's not as simple as that, right?
It's just not that simple.
It's not as simple as that. So those of y'all out there that's like, why does he keep triggering his wife every week? My daughter's inherited this from me. I like to rage bait.
God.
I like to rage bait my wife. So I will say things.
I'm tired of falling for it. 'Cause I'm like, what? Let's just move on to the next question. Jeez, you scroll it down, sir. I'm like,
Woo. Oh,
I'm
man.
gonna journal my thoughts tonight.
Leave it in the chat below. Leave it in the comments below if you'd like to see me do this every week. You like to see how can we trigger Lana this week? You know, so it's
maybe this one is easier. I'm looking in your phone, just so you know.
I gave you my phone password.
I forgot it. So I'm just saying, now I got to try to remember it.
When you asked me, he was like, hey.
He did, but I'm always like, oh, I trust you. And, you know, and so now I'm like, oh, no.
See?
All right, here we go. Is marriage measurable in the sense of 50-50, 80, you know, 100-100? You know, like we say, no, we in 100-100, or, you know, it's 50-50. You know, is that a myth?
Yes, to me. Marriage is if you know, one of them things that kind of describes how sound looks, it's like a curvy sine wave up and down, and it's all directions. And there are cases where everybody's pushing at 100%. There's cases when one party is carrying the whole thing on their back. It's cases when there's still some percentages, but one is operating at a different percentage level than others. And then there's some cases where holding the marriage together requires that we do different things, right? It's not that we're both, you know, we're still giving maximum effort, but it's not like an 80-20 or 100-100 scale. I think trying to assign mathematics, it satisfies this human urge that we have to create fairness in everything. Yeah. Right. We have this pull towards things being fair, right? That things should be equal, that, you know, I contribute this, you contribute that. You know, what's the phrase now? What do you bring to the table? Right.
I mean, is it wrong to think like that, though? I
don't think it's wrong, but I also don't think it's biblical. You know, I think
I agree with you on that one.
I think when you know, once again, not to get churchy or Christian, but, you know, it's like when it comes to fairness, you know, what fairness is there for what God did for us, right?
That's true.
There is none, right?
There is none. We can't.
And there absolutely is none.
He took the whole brunt.
Right. And then when he defines the relationship between husband and wife, he didn't say, you know, husbands share in the burden with your wife, wives share in the burden with your husband. He says, no, husband loves your wife as Christ loved the church. Wives respect your husband's right. So he even created different paths for how they should do it. And, you know, love your wife as Christ loved the church. He gave his life. You know what I mean? And so if everybody's giving their life, everybody's dead, right? So it can't be. Right. You know?
Now, to your point, too, I like that you said, like, what the Bible says about, you know, the wife has her responsibilities and the husband has his responsibilities. So 100%, you need to be doing what the Bible say for you. Yeah. And then 100% for me, I have to be doing what God says about me. Yeah. Because what I have found is that when you do run into issues like that, one of the first questions that God is going to ask is, well, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Right.
And what he's going to do is he's going to look at the responsibilities that you have in the marriage.
Your job description.
Right. My job description. He's not looking at your job description. Yeah. He's looking at my job description, and he is saying, okay, are you 100% doing everything that I've now asked you to do?
And guess what? There's no contingencies on your job description either, right? It's like, well, I couldn't do my job because he didn't, or I couldn't do my job because she didn't. It's like, no, your job description is your job description, regardless of how.
Right. Because sometimes we say that as women, well, you know, because, you know, we're supposed to respect our husbands. Well, I'm not going to respect him if he's doing this. Well, God's like, okay, but what's the requirement? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of that, right? Yeah. So, you know, even if we take that and sort of extrapolate that to our parents, right? The Bible says, honor your mother and father.
Yes.
It does not put a if or a then on that, right?
Right.
So
it doesn't.
Your mother and father have their position because they're your mother and father. It doesn't matter if they're drunk, crackhead, cuss, do everything wrong.
It is true.
Doesn't do what the Bible commands them to do. The Bible still commands us, even in all of that, to honor them. Yeah.
Right? I like what you're saying, because you still have to find a way. Yeah. Like you said. So what we're really saying is like you said, that's definitely a myth, because like you said, real life, there's no way to really divvy that up.
It's not.
Because like you said, things change, people change, and situations change. And so once again, like you said, if you're carrying the load in one season, I could be carrying it in the next. And two, I also think too, it's based on individual couples. Yeah. You know, there are couples who actually sit down and say, you know, hey, you know, this is how we're going to share the the housework.
Right.
This is how we're going to take care of the kids. And so but they have these discussions on what that looks like.
We're going to go through a season of investment in something,
Yeah.
right? So you're going to go and get your doctorate, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, the affairs of the home have to be taken care of by me, right? Or in the reverse, you actually did this when I went back for my graduate degrees,
Yes.
right? And so, we had to work that out, what it looked like to raise young kids and do all these things and work and all of that stuff while, I was studying, right? So, that wasn't a 50-50 situation.
But I also think, too, couples get in trouble with this because they don't discuss it. Because when you don't discuss it and when you feel like one person is carrying more than the other, then you get frustrated and you get bitter. And now you're like, oh my God, this is not what I signed up for. This is not the way I envisioned the relationship going, or this is not the way I envisioned marriage going. But so to me, that's why communication, and not even putting numbers on it, because even when we split up stuff, we never say, okay, you do 25% and I'm going to do 75%. It's just us having this discussion about, okay, what is this responsibility? What does this shared responsibility look like?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's really funny, too, because a lot of times it's not just, the whole, sort of expectation around things. It's sometimes, hey, I'm doing all this sacrificing that the other person didn't ask me to do. And now I'm mad because they don't recognize it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Wait
too.
a minute. You don't know what I'm doing to keep so and so and so and so, and you should appreciate it, whatever. It's like, I didn't know you were doing all that. I had no idea.
Yeah, that was my problem. I would be doing all this stuff in the background, moving all the stuff, and then you look like you living your best life, and I'm like,
right,
dude,
it's like I didn't know you was juggling.
Right.
It's like I never asked you to juggle, and if I'd have known there was a juggle, maybe I could have jumped in and helped. Right?
Absolutely. But that's because we weren't very good at communicating.
So
that's definitely a myth. Don't go into any relationship thinking that it's going to be even, or I like the word not even. I like the word that you said, fair.
Yeah.
It's because if you're going in it from that space, then you're already kind of setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. And go into it with the idea that we have to communicate through everything.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do.
So even when things aren't split fairly, we have an understanding of how we work together. Once again, that's what equally yoked looks like. We're working towards a direction.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're pulling in the same direction. We have different roles.
All right. What's our next one?
So this one is going to. I think we're going to talk a little bit about sex. So, look at you giggle. So you went from mad to giggling.
I know.
So does physical intimacy end when you get married? Now, I don't know. There's some parts of this that's mythical, and other parts that I think if you ask some people, they would be able to give you some data and say, I was getting it a whole lot more before marriage, right? Even though we don't condone
we
that.
Definitely don't condone getting it in before marriage.
Yeah, but we understand what people are doing, right? We're not naive to the fact of what's going on. And you have a lot of young men out here that feel like, they were beguiled through activity. and once they put the ring on it, the beguiling was begone.
I have no comment. I feel like that's.
I'm not talking about you.
Know.
I'm not.
I don't know. You're not trying to bait me again, are you?
This is not a bait. This is not a rage bait at all.
I'm like, okay.
I've got no comments in this.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Right. I'm speaking for a friend.
Oh, okay. Yeah, one of the friends that's in your phone. Right. Okay. Great. Okay. No, I do kind of agree with you in the sense that, like you said, I think physical intimacy, once again, it can go up and down.
Yeah.
And so once again, I think it's also about availability. Mm-hmm. It's also about not just waiting for the moment in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when we think about, I think when people make that statement, when they're talking about that myth, that we don't get it in, it's because, once again, they're probably still getting it in, mm-hmm. But once again, life happens, and you know, you got kids, you got to go to work, you have all these
schedule,
things.
you got responsibilities,
and
you got goals.
You're still making it happen, but in your mind, you're thinking, okay, we're not doing it enough, you know.
Yeah.
And two, you know, sometimes physical intimacy, I think people are still doing that, but I think the part of physical intimacy that kind of goes down is, you know, just affection.
Well, yeah. So I was going to draw a difference between sexual contact, right? The rubbing of body parts together, right? With physical intimacy, right? So touching, holding hands, you know, displays of affection, whether they're public or private, cherishing time with each other, right? So a physical intimacy doesn't necessarily mean we need to touch each other, but when we're in a sacred space together, that's sacred, right? Nobody's allowed to break that, right? That it means something, right? So I think if we start to open the aperture of what physical intimacy really means, because I would argue that the sex we were having in the world was not intimacy. That part is true. That was satisfying an urge. That was getting a release. That was fulfilling a fantasy. That was, you know, scratching an itch. Right.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, absolutely.
So I don't perceive that as physical intimacy. So I think physical intimacy, there's an opportunity for it to actually increase as you get married, because now, even when it comes to those physical acts, they're expressions of being with the one you love. Right. They're expressions of connection. Right. It's even, you know, our former pastor used to say this resolution, right? You know, coming together periodically actually creates resolution for the tension that gets built up for the time that you're apart, right? And so I think if you look at it with the right lens, it actually has the opportunity to increase. Now, does it really increase? Do people take advantage of it or look at it that way? I don't know. Yeah.
I think the other thing too is, which is, you know, something we don't necessarily talk about, is even using sex as a weapon in relationships and marriages. Because see, to me, I feel like if either spouse is using that as a reward or a punishment, then it's going to decline. Because now I'm looking at it like, okay, so the only time you want, you know, there has to be something attached to it. And I think that can be a reason too why there can be a decline. Because once again, if we love each other, you know, the Bible talks about, you know, when you're married, that a man should not withhold his body, just like a woman should not withhold her body, unless there's an agreement. And it's only supposed to be for a short time. You know, but once again, there has to be agreement. But there's nothing that says, okay, we now get to use intimacy as a tool to get something from the other spouse or to punish the other spouse. You know, so I think, once again, that's another one of those topics that's really big, because like you said, you can see data points where it's true, but then you also see data points where it's not. And that's because just sometimes of our behaviors. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm going to say something controversial here, right? I mean, when we talk about the first conversation in terms of our role and our responsibility, right? That's something that's part of our role, right? That's part of our responsibility to our spouse, right? It's not a reward. It's kind of like if I'm a parent and the only time I feed my child if they behave the way I want, then that makes me a bad parent, right? Because I'm not giving them what they need. I'm doing it based on performance.
Yeah, that's real talk.
You know, so we need to understand that our intimacy responsibility to our partner is fulfilling a need. It's fulfilling a God-ordained togetherness.
Because we need it.
Because we need it. We do.
Women, we need it.
We all do, right?
I'm just putting putting out there for the women. You know, sometimes women act like y'all don't need it, but y'all need it.
Yeah. This is true. We know it's a game. We want to play demure, right? But
I just had to add that. I'm sorry. You were being serious.
No. You're right there. No, it is. It's. We all need it. And so husbands, the same thing, right? You know, just recognize that maybe because your wife is more disciplined at managing her frustration than you doesn't mean that she doesn't need it as much as you. Right?
That's true. That's true.
And so, I think sometimes men use it as a tool as well. You know, well, I ain't gonna give her none because she ain't acting whatever. I don't want to be with her, whatever. The lady at my job is treating me better, so I ain't gonna do no. So that's ungodly, right? That's not what the design is.
That's true. And some people have high sex drives, and I think that just has to be a conversation too.
Yeah.
Because once again, they may not match.
Right.
And so you have to be able to talk about that.
Yeah. And so understanding differences in sex drives, that's another communication point, because it doesn't necessarily mean the person wants to withhold. They just can't go like that, right?
That's true.
And some of it may be chemical. If you've been together for a while and the ages change, and as we get older, things don't always snap to attention like they used to, right? Some things.
Perimenopause and menopause is a whole thing.
Some stuff is a little drier than it used to be.
It is true. Listen, tell the truth on this podcast, sir. I'm just telling you. We lived it.
We're talking real, right? And so there needs to be interventions and patience and understanding, and
all those
not
things.
taking it so seriously. It's like, we old. Sometimes this stuff happen, right? We got a cramp. Let's laugh at it. But the more, but all that does, it creates more opportunity for intimacy.
Yeah, that is true.
Because now we can share these what would be seeming like very embarrassing moments together. You know what I mean? And we can look back at them and laugh and do whatever, and even reminisce. Oh, I remember we used to go for hours and hours, and now it's like, hey, bing, bang, boom, and nap time, right? And everybody's happy, Right.
That is true. That is true. Listen.
But do what works for you. Yes. Do what works for your relationship
and talk
situation.
About it.
Talk about it.
That seems to be the gist of all the ones we're talking about, is just making sure that the line of communication stays open.
And those of you that are on the path, once again, we're not endorsing you to go out and start to test these waters. Right. But as you approach sort of the marriage thing, really let's talk about things like, okay, do you have a high sex drive, right? Yeah. I don't have a super high sex drive. I'm good with once, twice a week. But if you're with a person that's expecting it every day or every couple times a day, and you don't work out those differences,
that's true,
right? Then one's going to be frustrated because they have an expectation, and one's going to feel like they ain't meeting the mark, right? And
that's true.
Creates the opportunity for other things to enter in.
That is true.
Suggest you talk about it.
That is true.
All right.
What's our next one?
Counseling.
I thought this one was really good.
Yeah. Because we're actually not the best at this ourselves. Right. Right. That you don't need counseling.
Right. Especially if you feel like everything is going good.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's the thing. If marriage is going good, then why are we in counseling?
Yeah.
And I think, once again, that's a myth, because counseling to me is help.
Yeah.
And so, we may not have major issues, but the Bible says that, that sometimes you do, there's company and wise counsel.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes it could just be like, okay, you know what? I'm thinking about, things are kind of, things haven't been, great in the bedroom lately. So you know what? I want to try to figure out how to jazz it up.
Right.
So guess what? Now I'm going to have to go find somebody to have that conversation with. And sometimes we make that such a place of, I think anytime we feel like we got to step outside of each other to go have those conversations.
That is somehow a failure.
Right. That is a failure. When really, I think we have to flip the script and say, okay, no, I'm just trying to make things better.
Right. So no failure. It's leveling up. We're trying to level up. Right.
Exactly.
How do you level it up?
Yeah.
And going back to the first message that we said, everything that you feel ain't real.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes you need a set of eyes that are outside of your familiar space to take a look at what's going on and say, oh, here's what's really happening. You all can't see it because you're too close to the issue, right? Or you're too biased about the issue. But here's what we think is going on. And sometimes those external eyes, that independent third party, they're somewhat independent because hopefully they love you, right? They have but this outside perspective can help to round out your perspective so that, one, you don't take it personally. Two, you can get on a path to resolution with the person that you care about, right? So that it's not a conflict, that you're not taking it personally, that I'm not a failure, that I'm just, a man that can't satisfy, or a woman that can't satisfy, all these things.
And I think too that the more you have those conversations, once again, so if something really does come up that's serious, you already have a place to go, to be able to have those discussions. I just think especially in our community, I just think we just have such a stigma against therapy and talking about stuff that we feel like, well, ain't nothing wrong. I ain't crazy. It's all those things instead of, like I said, really looking at it as a help.
There's a lot of pridefulness issues. And then, we are coaches and mentors. We're not counselors. We're not like that. We will refer you to counselors if you need it. But even people that want to, join up with us, we've had situations where they flame out, right? They wouldn't want to go through the process. It's two reasons. One, doesn't believe in it.
Yeah.
Or two, they're going through it. And one party feels like the other party isn't taking it very seriously.
Yeah, that's true.
We've had more than one situation where they come to us and say, yeah, when we're in front of y'all, everybody is this, that, and the other. Everybody is this and representing, and we're doing all these changes and we're quoting scriptures. But when I go home with this joker, they behave completely different, right? And when I say joker, that's a male or a female joker.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It?
Yeah.
And so it's very unfortunate. I have to imagine that professional counselors go through that same sort of flaming out in terms of people pursuing counseling. But, to us, and the one thing that we're on the path to is, get a maintenance counselor. Nothing's wrong.
Absolutely.
But just have somebody you can confide in and talk to every month, every other month. Hey, let's just get together and go through it. Everything good? Yeah. Here's what we're working on. Here's some goals. I think that's a wonderful way to maintain.
Yeah, I do too.
Your relationship.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. Last one.
Yeah. If we have a problem, then God must not have meant for me to be with this person.
That's how many times I've even said that myself. Like I said, early on in our marriage. I mean, people probably don't, like I said, people be looking at us now because we look so happy. Like I said, if you saw us those first 10 years, you'd have been like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I was just like, I was asking God, like, this cannot be the right person for me, because I just felt like we were going through, I felt like it was just so hard for us to communicate, to connect on some issues. Yeah. I just felt like it was a fight all the time. Yeah. And it probably wasn't all the time, because once again, I'm using hyperboles. Yeah. But once again, it goes back to what you said in the beginning. What I feel isn't real. Yeah. That's not the real thing. And so I think, the reason why that's a myth is because we somehow think that, just because God is in it, and God had put us together, that it was just going to be smooth
magical,
sailing. It was going to be the fairy tale. And nothing was going to happen, and we weren't going to encounter any difficulties. And so as soon as we hit a difficulty or we see a behavior show up that's not like whatever, now we're like, oh, okay, I must have missed something. God, why didn't you show that to me? Or it becomes this whole issue, and so then we're ready to jump ship.
Yep. But what's biblical is when at least the stories I've read, once God ordains something, that's when the stuff shows up. Right. It's like right after the coronation. That's when all the challenges come along, right? That's when you're tested. That's when you're tried. That's when your patience is put through the meat grinder. That's when you encounter external forces that put you through all kinds of things.
But I also think, too, that's the one thing we forget, too.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why we have trials and tribulations, because the Bible does say that we're going to have all those things. And what it does is really building our character.
It is.
And a lot of times, we want to, like you said, it's like, because it feels so tough, we want to push back off of it instead of realizing that God is really evolving us. He's building something new on the inside of us.
And we don't recognize that we don't have the skills.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna put a link somewhere in the corner, either up here or here. Yeah. That's going to point you back to our love skills series. Yeah. Where we talk a lot about the whole skill of loving, right? The skill of being in a relationship. And I know if I look back then, a lot of the conflict, and I didn't have the skill. I wasn't taught it. I didn't know how to learn it. I didn't even realize I was ignorant of it. Now, as a man at this age, having been married this long, it was like, oh man, that's a skill that I didn't have, that I didn't develop, that I didn't even know how, And so I think for those that are on the path right now,
absolutely.
really start to understand and invest in what it means to have the skill to love, right? What are those skills that it takes to love somebody through trial and tribulation, to manage conflict, to deal with something I've never done, all of those things. Once again, we'll point to that series, but I think the big key is, to get through this last myth, you really have to develop those skills for love,
That's true. That's why we're still together. I felt like we developed them as we were going along, because we never want to present ourselves like, oh my God, like I said, for the last 32 years, we've, it's been smooth sailing.
No,
we have definitely hit bumps, but what I will say is that now that we're in year 32, and it was even before that, what we have learned is how to navigate that, because we both have grown, we both have matured, and we've both come to a place, like you said, we've both figured out this love skill, and so that's why we're still here. And so it's not because I chose wrong,
right?
We chose right.
Yep.
And even when you choose right, it doesn't mean that things aren't going to happen.
Right.
You just have to know what, like you said, you just have to trust that you've chosen the right person.
So I'm going to use another simple analogy. So right here over my right shoulder, you'll see.
It's not about me, is it?
No, it's not about you. You'll see a bunch of guitars, right? Bass guitars, right? I'm a bass guitarist. I like to play. So the day I decide to go out and make one of those basses mine, does that make me a bass player? No, right? So I haven't developed the skill yet, right? So unless I've played already, just buying that bass and now making it mine, now I have this bass is mine. I still have to invest in, okay, I've got to understand music. I got to understand my skill deficit. I got to understand dexterity. I got to understand speed. And even once I understand the instrument, now I got to understand what it's like to play it in band. I got to understand. There's all of these skills that I need to develop now that I have this relationship with this instrument, right? And so if we go into it saying, okay, just because we consummate the marriage on that day, that now turns into, I've just bought an instrument that I now have to spend the rest of my life developing the skills and perfecting the skills for, just like that instrument, right?
Yeah, one of our followers, Kim Young, I saw a post she did on Instagram today, and she was saying, I guess the couple had been married for like 60 years. And one of the things was, it's like over those 60 years, it's like there's this evolution, there's this relearning. So you can't expect everything to stay the same. And I love how you said that. It's like learning the instrument and putting yourself in different situations. Like you said, I can do a solo, but now I'm in a band, and that's a whole different dynamic.
That's a whole different dynamic of playing.
Of playing. And so I think too, like you said, it's not about it's the dynamic of navigating through issues and navigating through problems, because once you get over one problem, something else is going to happen. And it could be big or small, but once again, when you've chosen right, see, that's why I think sometimes that's our mindset too, because we automatically jump to, well, you must be wrong for me, instead of saying you're right for me. Now we just have to figure out together how we tackle this together.
Well, back to my bass analogy, I can keep changing basses if I can't play, right?
And some people don't.
I can go buy another bass. I can buy another bass. I can buy another bass. It's not going to change my commitment to developing the skill and the acumen and the competency to play it well and to make music with it, right? And so, how many of us are prepared to make music in our relationships, right?
I love that.
To really take that to the next level by saying, well, it's not just about choosing another person or choosing the right bass to make me play right. How do I become a bassist, right? How do I become a husband? How do I become a forever person for somebody else?
That's real.
And now, learning and developing those skills. I started out plucking and making bad notes and doing all these weird things, and it was kind of odd, and I made mistakes. But at some point, I became a virtuoso.
No, I'm about to fall in love with this brother all over again. I am rubbing his knee. Yes.
I became a virtuoso. I can do great solos. I can do great fills, and I can make sounds that people, and I can, and when you play, people are moved and they like to dance, and it's less about the instrument and more about the effect.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do we get to that place in our relationships? You know, once again, we got to develop that skill.
Yeah.
So
man, you said a whole mouthful right there.
You haven't chosen the wrong person. Learn how to play your bass.
Yeah, that's real.
That's what you got to do.
I love it. Listen, he knows how to play me well.
Uh-oh. All right. So,
sorry.
Before we get down into the abyss, if you like this content, if you enjoyed this content, this message,
we're ending on a good note.
We're ending on a good note, right. If you want more rage bait, you got to tell me. You got to tell me below.
Vote no.
All right, lay a like on us. Share this video. Subscribe to the channel if you found value in what we're saying. What say you about this topic, these myths? Let us know if you got some more myths that you want to share with us. Yeah. And that's all we got.
That's all we got for today.
So Safehouse, as always, we love you. Thank you for your support.
We love you guys.
And we end with peace.